We have Andréa Guerra
Finally.
from Minas Gerais in Brazil, and around whom really we convened this event. My name's Erica Berman. I'm based here in Manchester Institute of Education, and I'm also a group analyst, and I work on the counselling psychology program with colleagues here. What would be great, I think, before other people maybe introduce themselves, is to find out what brings, or who you are here, and what brings you to this session. Because I know our counselling psychology students are largely busy this afternoon and are unable to attend. So, are you therapists? Are you students? Are you staff? What's your interest? Or I think we have the time until Laia comes. It would be great if people just said their names and who they were. Yeah, please. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Jo Biglin. I'm a lecturer in social psychology at Salford. So I know Soraya, and yes, I'm interested in. I work with asylum seekers, looking at place and belonging. But I'm also interested in terms of pedagogy of decolonising the curriculum, and I'm working in EDI. And we have a decolonial psychology reading group, and so we these are students.
Right. Sorry, what was your first name again?
My name's Jo.
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 Great, thank you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Bailey. I am one of Jo's students, and she's my supervisor. I am also interested in place, belonging, and EDI. I have worked with Jo in different projects related to EDI, and I also know Soraya because she teaches at Salford. And I also came here because I wanted to meet Andrea. I saw that she's from Brazil. I am from Venezuela, so
Yes. We have many things in common.
Yeah.
And you're psychology and counselling.
Yeah, psychology and counselling. Yeah, final year. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Hadia. I'm a second-year student at Salford, and I do BSc Psychology. I'm part of the Decolonial Reading Group, and was interested in coming.
Hi, I'm Janessa, and I'm just interested in learning about decolonization, learn more about it. And also, I'm a first year student in single honors psychology.
At Salford or Manchester? Great, thank you so much for coming.
Hi, I am a counsellor, and I'm hoping to do a PhD with Soraya at Salford, exploring the relationship between therapy and identity, which will touch on colonialism.
And your name?
Zorana.
Zirana.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Andréa. I'm also from Salford. I'm doing my final year in MSc, and I am researching this topic around decolonising curriculum of psychotherapy. So yeah, that's my interest. I also know Soraya. I've heard Jo's work, but when I was on the board for University of Sanctuary at Salford, and yeah, that's my connect. And I'm hoping I can get some tips off Andrea.
Hi, my name is Apala. I am Vandrima's friend. I am not from any sort of psychology background. I am a PhD student in anthropology from London, but I'm doing research in Manchester at the moment, and my research is on motherhood among migrant communities here in the city. So decolonizing is of great interest, but I don't know much about psychoanalysis, so I'm just here to learn.
I'm Laura. I know two of you. My name is Laura Winter. I'm a counselling psychologist. I work on the doctorate programme here in Manchester. I work with Erica, and therefore we're both involved in a kind of staff group around decolonisation. We've done lots of thinking and talking about this, but I think there's tons to learn. It's not an area that I've done specific kind of research on myself, although I've done work around social justice and counselling psychology, which touches on decolonisation, and yeah, just keen to learn more really.
You're not going to mention your other roles in the university?
Well, yes. I'm also a school director of equality, diversity and inclusion, which is a funny one, which we can probably talk about more at some point. It's kind of excellent and awful all at the same time.
I am Claire. I'm here because my friend Zara told me about it, which is wonderful. But I'm also here because I'm a psychiatrist, or trained as a psychiatrist. Taking a pause from that at the moment to think about wider issues. But I also think the decolonisation in mental health and health in general is something that really just want to explore more, know more about. And I spent, the majority of my life in Botswana, and I'm seeing the impact of Western mental health and medicine there, and the implications of that. So very keen to just learn and
Hello, hi. I'm realising that I think I may have met
Yes, we have met.
you.
I know where we met.
Yes.
The Didsbury for Palestine
Yes.
social. Yes.
Yeah, it's a small world.
Brilliant.
So I'm here because a friend of mine who works at the University of Salford told me about this event. So I'm a psychiatrist as well, and I've also trained as a psychotherapist. And what was apparent to me, I think especially, I became aware of it more during my psychotherapy training, was that so many voices were missing from the room.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And there was so many of us with marginalised voices who just weren't represented, and the more we took it, the less we got. Yeah, they just weren't interested, I think, because there wasn't an awareness around it. So I have a growing area of interest, in decolonisation, and I'm here to learn more and to think more about it with everyone.
So for people who've just come in, yes, hi. People are just introducing themselves, and we're also waiting for the chair of this session. And so just while you're, settling in, if I can ask Alex, would you just say who you are and what you're doing here, and why there are cameras here?
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a part of Ragged University and the Asylum Collective, and I'm very interested in learning in the wild, if you like. And I've got personal interest in the settler colonial history of Britain and how it attends to or doesn't attend to people's health, welfare, state of feelings, experience, etc. So it's just lovely to find people who are open to sharing knowledge, and that's where my heart is. So very kindly been welcomed to record this and share it with people outside of the room, because I believe in a knowledge commons.
But if anyone isn't happy about being recorded, or we can move cameras, or we probably should have said this at the beginning.
But the camera is just focused on us.
Oh, okay, right, all right.
Right. And the video should go up on the Ragged University website, won't it? Which is a great resource for lots of different things.
And beforehand, I will be giving the files to yourselves, and there's that opportunity after the fact for people to go, oh, well, raise any questions or queries. The recording's yours, so.
So if anyone has any issues with or wants bits deleted, from our discussion, I hope we don't, but just in case,
let us know.
Let us know. And I hope you'll say more about the Ragged University and Asylum magazine at some points. It is relevant, isn't it? The Ragged University is about decolonising the university in its most fundamental way. So. Yes, please. Could you say who you are and what's brought you here? Because that's what everyone else has been doing.
You want to do it first? So I'm Temi. I study mechanical engineering, so something very away from this. But I do have an interest in psychology, and my girlfriend, she studies psychology, and she said this would be an interesting lecture, and I like the topic, so.
Right.
Oh, hello, I'm Christine. I'm third year psychology student, and I want to do clinical psychology in the future. And I think this is like my driving factor to becoming a psychologist. So it's something that I don't have any option but care about. And
Right. And here in Manchester University or
Salford.
in Salford, right? So I think even though Soraya's ill, and so she can't be here, but so you will have to be speak for the collective viewpoints that she would have brought to the table. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
And she's a group analyst like me, so it's perfectly appropriate. So.
And I'm Ian Parker. I work as a psychoanalyst. I'm involved in a group called the Red Clinic, which is a collective of communist mental health workers making psychoanalysis accessible to people and thinking about the connection between politics and personal change. And because Laia isn't going to be here immediately, but she will have things to say when she arrives, I wonder whether we should make a start with Andréa's talk.
Okay.
And then we'll have a little bit of time to discuss.
Because as some of you probably know, it's a very busy day today. There are lots of other events going on, so we can't. I mean, you will need to go. We will need to go.
At this moment, there's a meeting about boycott, divestment and sanctions happening. There's a demonstration in the centre of Manchester against Palantir. Lots of things.
Lots of decolonial kind of activities, and 2 different events at 4:00 that probably people are going to, either
4:30.
Is it 4:30 in HCRI, Humanitarian Conflict Response Institute? Very interesting lecture, and Gilbert Achkar is doing a talk in the Global Development Institute that so we're going to. So yes, so I think we should press on.
So first of all, I must say that my English, I will try my best. I will read.
Who are you?
Yes, I will say that. Yes. In my country, Brazil, we don't have a second language for everybody. So I learned English in my a little older, but I will do my best. I also want to say thank you. I am doing, Erica and Ian, I am doing an 1 year in deep studies, I can say that, postdoctoral, something just like this in Manchester. So this was a very good occasion to learn and study more and more about decolonization and psychoanalysis. And finally, my name is Andréa Guerra.
How do you
Andréa Guerra. In Portuguese, Andréa Guerra. And I am very happy to be with you today because I am in Brazil. I am professor at the Federal University of Minas Gerais. We have big universities in federal level. They are free for the population. And since 12 years ago, we started to have quotas, affirmative quotas in English. I think it's the same.
Affirmative action.
Action.
And quotas.
Yes, we have 50% for affirmative actions and 50% for all people in general. So it changed a lot in a very good way the public universities, because now we have really a diversity of students, and not only the diversity of bodies and persons and cultures, but we interrupted the circles of inaccessibility for poor, and most of all for Black people, because as you know, we had 400 years of colonization, Portuguese colonization, between 16 and 19 centuries, and we had the worst transatlantic commerce of people. of Black people. And we also had many indigenous people before Portuguese arrived in our country, in our territory. Pindorama, the indigenous called the Brazil Pindorama place. And they were 400 different, I think you say tribes, we say aldeias, indigenous communities. And now less 40, much more, they lost their language, their culture in most of all tribes and communities. And now we are the result of these three, the European, the indigenous, and the African diasporical people. We are miscegenous people. 56% are black or brown, and the other are white. So, but the concentration, the economical concentration is with the white people. So the affirmative actions were very important for us. It changed. It is changing my country. And I was really touched by all of this when I realized 10 or 15 years ago that I was a white woman. It is not obvious for the white people that they are white, that they are racialized in Brazil. As Fanon, Franz Fanon thought, the white person thinks that they are the humans. Mm-hmm. So that changed myself, my life, my way of being. So now I am really in activities, in political actions in the university to make change. Yes. I create with the black colleagues free clinics that is called Occupy Psychoanalysis Occupation, something just like this. And we have now we have support, financial support, and we are training, we are listening, and we are producing about decolonization and anti-racist psychoanalysis. Mm-hmm. So I am reading many things. I am doing many research in this way, and I can say that a situated psychoanalysis is emerging, and it demands the theoretical formalization of the clinic. Today, I put forward a hypothesis about psychoanalytic listening. I think it can help you in psychology. I will talk about diagnosis of schizophrenia. What do you do? I continue.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Maybe she can introduce herself.
No, just keep continuing.
You can do it in a bit.
Okay. When immersed in a complex context of historical contradictions, radical inequalities, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and misogyny. I don't know if you know, but Brazil is one of the countries that killed more trans people and women. Fascism and authoritarianism, violence of different orders, symbolic paradoxes, and political ideological struggles, all here to process of colonization. I also want to say that I was with Soraya and I loved her. It was a shame not be with her today. We talked during 1 hour and it was wonderful to know the online, her strong and precisely personality. I loved her. But I think we can be together in the future. This is my presentation, also an invitation to form a counter-hegemonic line of clinical thought, based on local experience through a geopolitical immersion that requires listening inseparably to singular suffering and its cultural and historical determinations, as proposed by Fanon with his idea of sociogeny. So I will, besides ontogeny and phylogeny of Freud, I will work with the sociogeny of Fanon. I will deal with this system of power articulation, which has a direct impact on the political level, on social bonds, and I think on the constitutive unconscious process of each person's subjectivity. It is worth noting that psychoanalysis is a theory taught in universities from the north to the south of Brazil, a continental country. And the psychoanalysis is also a lively and vibrant theory and practice, used both in individual clinic practice and in public policy, in analyzing complex social phenomena, and we are also in scientific research. So it is so strong in Brazil, psychoanalysis. I would like to present the way I was confronted with a particular dimension of transference, one that recurs in my private practice, but that first emerged in intervention I carried out in an urban quilombo. Quilombo are territories occupied by descendants of fugitive enslaved people who resisted enslavement during the colonial period, from 16th until 16th until 19th century in Brazil, and who, since 1988, have been constitutionally recognized in Brazil as having the right of land ownership. Could you understand my English? Okay, thank you. The work consisted of 20 months of psychoanalytic conversations, a kind of a group conversations, and the clinical listening began with the request of one resident who acted as the spokesperson of the psychic suffering for her niece, both Black women from this quilombo. From the outset, the request arose from a collective mode of belonging, because in quilombo they are all together, they do everything together, rather than from an individualized and neoliberal mode, even if it was enunciated as though it were an isolated problem pertaining to this woman's psychic distress. It was formulated through what I call the negative modality of transference, the suspicion. She said, I don't believe in psychology. Psychologists don't understand us and end up doing a lot of damage. We were receiving just like this, but they said you are different. Let's see. There were suspicion in the relationship between us and them. This is the form I elaborate in my book, Supposed Suspect Subject in Portuguese, Psychoanalytic Transference in the Global South. The suspicion instead of the love or the supposed knowledge on the person of the psychoanalyst.
Can I just ask, does everyone know what transference?
I will explain now.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes, because
and subjects supposed to know.
Yes.
Explain this to.
Yes. I will do a little review for those who are not psychoanalysts in a simple way, okay? From Freud, and after a little Lacan, but more Freud. With transference, an artificial neurosis emerges, which, according to Freud, reproduces the analysant's infantile images
Infantile images
projected onto the figure of the psychoanalyst. So they repeat the problems unconsciously with the psychoanalyst. Through these reeditions and reproductions of motions and fantasies, in the bound with the analyst, the analysand, the patient, repeats unconscious symptoms which can then be worked through. For example, they can be angry with the psychoanalyst, even the psychoanalyst didn't do nothing special, because they were angry with, for example, a man with his father. They can repeat this emotion with the psychoanalyst, and then we can say, why this angry? Tell me more. Oh, you act just like my father. Oh, yeah, tell me about your father. And so go on. Precisely for this reason, it becomes possible to intervene upon these symptoms, either by releasing what has been repressed or by intervening upon the defense, thereby altering the drive circuit, the way with what they get suffer. They went suffering. For this error of person, a kind of error of person, I can say that, mistake of person in English.
Yeah, the errors
of person, which the analyst strategically uses in interpretation, it becomes possible to dismantle defenses and intervene in symptomatic symbolic arrangements that carry suffer and obstruct the desire, the satisfaction. So the person repeats the suffer one and one more, and we repeat with the analyst. So we can, through this repetition, we can touch the point where the symptoms are born, and then they disappear or they become other things, and they can they can encounter other ways to be satisfied and not to suffer. Freud, from the analytic sense, he styled transference as the clinical battleground, for there is no battle without an enemy, and for him, it is the unconscious resistance, the repetition. These are the resistances. So, because the symptom carries secondary gains, why a person being in suffering and continues in suffering? Because they obtain gains, secondary gains. For example, if I am angry with everybody, as I was angry with my father, nobody touches me. So I am happy with this, but I suffer because I can't do the things as I want to do, as I really want to do. So it's this kind of gain, secondary gain, that maintains the person with their symptoms, and they resist to take out these problems. The management of recollections and repetitions, often expressed through enactments under transference, constitutes for Freud the pathway for working through psychic suffering by means of the analysis interventions. Freud then asks that might constitute an ending to analysis given these limits of each person. This is the transfer in Freud. Nowadays, how could we read this kind of experiences? In the present context, is the third part, we can see the unconscious and transfer referred to androcentric, racial, and economical power. The person repeats with us their unconscious experiences, but also not only in relation to their family, for example, but with the relationships that I think that not only in Brazil, but for all the world, they have difficulties with the violent repression, violent normatized, I can say that, symbolic rules. Because we witness in the repetition that casts suspicion on the figure of the psychoanalyst, the unequal power relationship, an unconscious instance of how the social dimension acquires prevalence in the subjective articulation of unconscious symptoms. I think this is not a local experience. You can see clearly in Brazil because our violence is explicit. I think you heard about 100 people killed in a favela in Rio de Janeiro 15 days ago, by the police, by the state force, the public police, killed more than 100 people in 2 favelas in Rio de Janeiro, saying that they are protecting the population. How they can protect the population, killing the population. This is so explicit in my country that I think we can see that clearly. But I think with a global world in conflicts, we were in the other place listening about Gaza. In conflicts and in war, the suspicion becomes a constant, a rule in relationships in general. I think nowadays we can be introduced to another person, and first of all, we stay a little with the suspicion. May I say what I think? Can I be myself? So I think it's it is normalized, the suspicion. Thus, today we can conclude that unconscious experience is impacted by transformations in the civilizing process. We live with the collapse of a supposedly common symbolic organizer, which has fragmented the notion of a single overarching center of power. Power can now be read as economic, symbolic, and normative imposition, rather than as an ideal to be attained. I know that as in Venezuela, we always think that in when we are colonized people, we think that we must go through Europe to be a civilized person. Mm-hmm. And when we return to our country, we are really they think that if you go to Europe and return, as Fanon said, but in another sense, we are now smarter than before. We are more respected, and I think this is terrible because we think that we cannot think about our own ideas and about our own experiences.
May I ask you something, Andréa?
Please.
Is this when you're returning from Europe, as in with a degree, or are you saying just return?
Anything. For example, I do 1 year during my doctoral studies in French. As I arrived, if I said, I was in Paris, I said, it changed. As you now are a civilized, you know how to think, you know how to do. And I think that this is terrible. In my case, for instance, when I realized that this is a kind of a colonization and I must repeat it very carefully, the words I heard in Paris, I was interdicted for thinking from myself.
Prohibited from thinking.
Thank you. Prohibited. Thank you. So it's so strong. I think in Venezuela is the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same. I know because I'm doing my studies here, and I know if I ever go back to Latin America, they will think, "Oh wow, you went to an English university. You must be smart."
Yeah.
And they will try to give me jobs Here, take this because you deserve it.
Exactly. It is a kind of interdiction and hegemonical way to take away our thoughts and our feelings. And the couple Shihai, talked about this kind of unconscious operations as extractive introjection. We lost our subjectivity and we import the European, the Western subjectives.
So when you return,
thank you.
Please, just going to say this is what Fanon
from
Fanon, exactly what Fanon said.
So when you're returning with a global not degree, you are automatically put on this pedestal.
Exactly.
And everything that you say is more true?
Yes.
Is more important?
Yes.
Okay.
Santiago Castro Gomes proposed this kind of European or Western thoughts. 0 point, I don't know how to say in English, 0 point of knowledge. As you in Europe, in the Western culture, think that you invented the word, invented the theories, only 5 countries, Inglaterra, France, Ireland, Germany, United States now, and sometimes Italy. There are 5 countries that promotes the knowledge in all of the world. How can they understand Brazilian indigenous people if even me in Brazil cannot understand the way they think, the cosmogony, the cosmology of them. Yes. So the idea of epistemology for Santiago Castro Gomes and for Rita Segato, Silvia Kuzikanki, there are Latin American intellectuals, they denounce this kind of disappropriation of our cosmologies, of our in the name of a kind of epistemology, a developed epistemology. 0 point of knowledge is this. As you are proposing the idea is true. Just like this. And we must repeat in Latin America to be as the best. Yes, it's terrible. But I lost many time. I can go on, okay? Because I will return to. It's okay, okay. You can tell me the time. I 5, 10.
Carry on.
Okay. In the psychoanalytic work I undertake in Brazil's public clinics, I am generally received with suspicion rather than with transferential love, as in the case I recount here. Suspicion as an epistemic modality entails verification not only of what has occurred, but also of the suspicion itself, since you have no evidence for it. Suspicion may be situated within a relation of doubt the subject maintains toward themselves. This subjective doubt concerning one's value unfounds in a zone of self-evaluation of one's capacities, one's being, in relation to an ideal that serves as a measure. Because we no longer possess a shared Western ideal in our century, in this century, it's the question the subject asks about themselves and their value returns in a kind of inverted form. We are no more in relation to this ideal. Thus, we can understand these suspicions along with the whole series of Russell manifestations defined as negative transference as a response to the message of devaluation that comes from the other. In my country, Black people, for example, they could not have their hair as they are naturally. because this is a mark, a kind of devaluation presentation.
Unprofessional.
Yes.
Unprofessional.
Yes, thank you. Suspicion appears when one is not sure about someone, when there is something one does not know and yet anticipates as bad or negative, rekindling a sense of strangeness bound to the terror of the sense. I can say that.
Enjoyment, satisfaction.
Thank you. That inhabit us. As a knowledge without evidence, suspicion cannot be demonstrated, hence its insistence. When evidence exists, the matter can be settled. Suspicion, in lacking evidence in relation to the otherness, demands a vigilant gaze, keeping the others in one's sights precisely because one does not know what to expect. Suspicion leaves an open margin. It situates itself between knowledge and belief and is sustained by distrust, which produces an anticipatory interpretation. And they repeat this with us in clinical situations. Even if they are not, we can see that not only with people in vulnerability. For instance, an adolescent in my private consultation is always putting me in question. Oh no, in Google I can see other things. I asked IA and they told me other things. So I think this is a kind of a new presentation of our relationships. This occurs because we mobilize in such constructions our own way of being in relation to other modes that threaten us. We turn back toward the other, who becomes suspicious, our all insecurities and fears. This is an unconscious projection in the very intensity with which they inhabit our being. In many cases in my country, it's real. The violence is real, and they are fear that we could repeat this violence with them. And sometimes the psychology or the psychiatrists are iatrogenic. Iatrogenic?
Produces the illness.
Yes, produces the illness. Reproduces. I will show you an example. Faced with this modality, I propose 3 clinical movements. First movement, to welcome the form in which this kind of suspicion, this kind of love, and these subjects present themselves, legitimizing the experiences of violence they have suffered and fear that could be repeated with us. So I say, yes, I can understand you. I know that in journal, and I really know that it happens. It happens. The worst happens. Second, to invite them to explain these contexts and to situate themselves within them, showing how the other enters in this dialect of power. So I asked, tell me more. How the shows happened before, how it is happening now. So then they can realize that they are not an exception. This is not only with him or her, but this is a kind of organized power, hierarchical situations. And they can see the other not as they have all of this power, but as who wants to have all of this power, and is repeating an oppression and situations of imposed situations with them, and the rights are there for everybody. So this can change, this kind of second, the narratives can change. And third, we can help them locate the dimension of power at play and reposition themselves in relation to the suspicion of self-projected onto the other, thus enabling them to reread their whole history, the history of our country, the history of the world, and to rename themselves or name themselves otherwise. There are more things, but I think we can speak a little.
As you wish.
Yes, then I can return to the Quilombolas situation to talk about the schizophrenic diagnosis that Denise received because she used alcohol and drugs a lot, and she was diagnosed by the Western psychiatric theory as a schizophrenic person, and she refused the diagnostic, and she told, "No, I am not. I know that my grandmother, my aunt, not the grandmother, but the
great
aunt,
Yeah.
had also received the same diagnosis." And she realized after the conversations that this was a kind of silence imposed to her because she denounced she was a rebellious person, a rebelled person. So she realized that she and her mother and her great aunt had received the same diagnosis because they did not accept this kind of oppression, and she was the key to the Quilombo to rename, to resituate their selves in our city, Belo Horizonte, because they were a kind of a slum, dealers, favela, Islam, a kind of a slum, and they discovered their enslaved origins by defending their territory, and they became a quilombo recognized by the city, by the state of Minas Gerais, and now they are trying. There are 3 levels to be recognized from our constitution, federal constitution. To be a quilombo is not only say we are quilombolas. They have juridical process to obtain the recognition of being a quilombolas, and they are trying to get the last one level, and now they are a cultural, how can I say, they are now they are not the Islam, but the quilombo, a urban quilombo that is a kind of a cultural patrimony of our city.
Heritage?
Yeah, exactly. A cultural heritage of my city. And this I want to tell you about this because sometimes the psychiatric or the psychologist diagnosis can help sometimes, but sometimes can interrupt good ways, good paths to find other representations, other feelings, other emotions. And I think as to conclude, as James Baldwin said in I'm Not Your Negro, a very good documentary I suggest it to you. Not everything you face can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. If we repeat the Western way of practice to make our clinical practices the classical way, sometimes we lost the more rich, the more powerful ways to hear the people, to hear the suffer and change it. Sometimes we repeat the erasure, I can say that, the erasure of the history, of the identity, of the original appartenance, the original belongings, and we can be violent just as the world can be with the otherness. So this was the more important things I want to say to you, because I want to hear everybody.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm going to hand over to Laia now to chair. And before you chair, can you just say who you are and where you come from?
Do you feel up to doing this?
Yeah, sure. So that was the only responsibility that I had, and I came late because in my calendar I wrote from 4. I don't know why. So I was happily drinking my tea. I saw your message. Oh, what the fuck? I need to be in the university. Yeah, so sorry for being late. Yeah.
My daughter.
Sure. I'm Laia. I'm a PhD student in education here in Uni of Manchester, and I'm working on social movements. And Ian is my supervisor, and Erika is kind of de facto my supervisor. And yeah, I'm so happy that meet you again, Andréa. So happy to have you here, and I'm so sad that we don't have Soraya with us, and I hope that she'll become well very soon. So because we don't have Soraya, so Ian and Erika kindly accepted to tell us something about their own projects. So maybe we can start with Erika.
But I wonder, before we do that, whether people might have some thoughts about Andrea's presentation, because there's a lot in there.
Yeah, I know, definitely.
Yes.
I mean, the structure that we organized together was like,
okay,
that,
So you got, sorry, you're the boss, go.
Yeah, don't be chair, I'm the chair now. Okay. Maybe, Erika, you can go, and then Ian, you also add your
and at the end,
present, and at the end, we got back to you and, talk about this together. Yeah?
Sorry, we are going to leave, but is there any way that we can get that research, that article that
yes,
you talked about?
There's a way, my email.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot.
You don't have a pen? No.
Did you register on Eventbrite?
Yes.
In that case, I can contact you.
Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, sorry.
You can.
It's okay.
You sent it to everyone.
I can get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will send the test for everybody.
Thank you. Sorry for disrupting.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Well, I'm full of, probably like all of you, sort of full of responses really to what you just said, Andréa, because I'm sort of in having to step in, with very short notice without Soraya. I was thinking, what can I talk about? And having had conversations quite recently with Soraya, I mean, as Laura said, I'm involved in convening a group that's called Decolonising Counselling Psychology, and with Soraya and other people as a group analyst, I'm involved in a group that was going to be called the EDI group of group analysis, but renamed itself very quickly Power, Position and Privilege. And Soraya was, as some of you may know, she was commissioned to write a decolonising, what's involved in decolonising group analysis report, which came out maybe over a year ago, it might even be 2 years now. And what's been very interesting was thinking about, so my thoughts were really thinking about the institutional processes of sort of not only thinking through the project of decolonization and decolonizing as a verb that will never be finished, not a finished fact, but also what the response, institutional responses are to these initiatives. And, Soraya, I think, is feeling pretty burnt out by that process. And I think we can all those of us who are involved in anti-racist activist work can recognize that. Equivalent things kind of go on in this university, both in whether it's the curriculum or, thinking about our relationships with students. And my sense was, and I think I said this to you last night when we met, that the context in Brazil is so different because of the political commitment to change to change from the bottom up, to enforce a change, and it wasn't without resistance. There was a lot of upheaval in Brazilian universities when this law came in to say 50% of the students have to be from poor, marginalized, and that largely means Black backgrounds, but could also be trans or other kinds of non-normative marginalized positionings. So I was thinking about all of that, and then my position as an academic and as a group analyst in these organizations. And then I was thinking, when you talked about this dynamic of suspicion, I think this is so interesting for us, and it reminded me of there's a chapter in Fanon's book, his middle book, A Dying Colonialism, of medicine and colonialism, where he's talking about how and it's although Fanon writes a great deal, doesn't he, about the clinical processes and colonialism and psychiatry and so on, it's the place where he's most specific about what goes on in the doctor-patient relationship, and how that dynamic of mutual suspicion undermines the relationship of trust that he says is so central to the to a healing, the doctor being able to do their job of trying to heal, diagnose and heal the patient. He's talking about medicine here, not psychiatry, and he gives examples of the sort of European doctor in Algeria, and sometimes even maybe the Algerian doctor, but who's been trained in Europe, because the trainings wouldn't have been in Algeria, kind of treating listening to a patient, and what is going on there, and how the Algerian patient is bringing a whole cultural structure of suspicion to the medical encounter. And obviously, and a lot of Algerian doctors, the European ones, were really colonists in a big sense. They have they own plantations, etc. So it wasn't just an imaginary connection they were making, how the doctor would interpret the behavior or supposed non-compliance of the patient, as in racialized terms of sort of, they don't understand, they backward, they can't engage with this kind of knowledge, etc. And how for the Algerian, Fanon says, well, so, they might just say, oh, I don't really like doing this, and other people don't approve having these pills or whatever, so I'll take them all at once, get it out the way, and I'll have the traditional medicine too. And how this produces mutual miscommunication, you could say. Well, thinking about your suspicion, I was thinking, well, what does that do to acknowledge the legitimate suspicion that people come to therapy or counselling with, or our students come into the classroom with, and because in the in the world of, I can't speak for EDI because I've been involved with it institutionally, but my sense is that there's a sense in which, as a therapist who's trying your best, or as an academic trying to change we kind of have an expectation people ought to be pleased and grateful or receptive to the initiatives that we're trying to make, and that it's quite, so it's so easy then for the counsellor or the teacher to think this person isn't engaging properly, or psychologize their resistance instead of acknowledging it as a political resistance. Or it's psychological too. And Fanon's always good at attending to the individual. You said it beautifully. The sort of unique, specific, embodied and situated character of Fanon's analysis of and that's what makes Fanon such a brilliant theorist and a real phenomenologist, not just a phenomenologist of race, but of in general too. And that it's so easy to psychologize, and in a well, I'm a group analyst, so in an individual therapeutic counselling relationship, or even in a group, it's very easy. Somebody can be scapegoated in a group for being the one to express that suspicion when it may well be very legitimate. And I suppose that's what I was thinking about and thinking about how institutionally, how those parties who, including, say, the power position and privilege group, the committee, which isn't a committee, but it's a group. When we raise things, we get treated as objects of suspicion by our the broader institution, or, even though for universities and other organizations, these equalities committees and, they know they're necessary, but still, and they have to be listened to, but they also need to be shut down and dismissed in some way, because they, fundamentally, we're talking about some, very dramatic changes in organizations that organizations cannot really get their heads around. But I was thinking about how this suspicion kind of works across domains, in relationships, really. That's what How do you deal with it in the Red Clinic, Ian?
Thanks for that question, Erica. Well, maybe we can come to that, but I was wanting to say a little bit about that third step in the transference that you kind of hinted at, but didn't follow through, which I think is quite important, which is the move from Freud's understanding of transference to Lacan's understanding of transference. And of course, this is very relevant in the context that you're working in, because although in the English-speaking world, most psychoanalysis thinks of itself as being Freudian, even though many psychoanalysts are following post-Freudian writers like Winnicott or Klein or other writers of that kind. In Brazil and in most of Latin America, most of the psychoanalysts think of themselves as being Freudian, yes, but they also think of themselves as being Lacanian. That is, followers of Jacques Lacan, the French psychoanalyst, originally trained as a psychiatrist, but then developed his own understanding of psychoanalysis through the 1940s and 1950s, and then broke away from the International Psychoanalytical Association eventually in 1963 to found his own tradition of psychoanalysis. Now, one of the things that marks out Lacanian psychoanalysis from traditional Freudian psychoanalysis is that there's a shift from an idea of biologically wired in ages and stages of development and forms of personality and all of that kind of thing, to an understanding of the subject, that is the human subject's relation to language. So everything is in relation to language for Lacan. So he goes back to the fundamentals of psychoanalysis as being a talking cure. Psychoanalysis is the attempt to put things into language, to release the things that are trapped in the body and symptoms that express themselves through bad legs and bad coughs and all of that kind of thing, to put them into language and thereby to be able to hear yourself speak and to think in a different way about what you've been subjected to through your life. And that understanding of psychoanalysis as a relation to language means that Lacan has a slightly different way of understanding what transference is. Mm-hmm. Rather than transference being a simple kind of replication of a relationship to the father or the mother or other family members, and this is a stereotype or a caricature, okay, of psychoanalysis, of Freudian psychoanalysis, but that's the way that most people pick it up. That's what transference is. You're relating to me like your mummy, you're relating to me like your daddy, something like that, you know? A very crass interpretation of transference. What Lacan says is that the fundamental underlying scheme of transference is that the analysand, that is the person who's come in for analysis, who's the one who does the analysing, yeah? The analysand, the patient or the client, the analysand, kind of in transference, configures the analyst as what Lacan calls a subject supposed to know.
Yes.
That is, the underlying schema is that I'm faced with someone who has immense knowledge, who has a psychiatric or psychological, psychoanalytic training, and therefore must know what I'm thinking and what I've experienced, and whatever I say, they'll be able to fit that into their schema and make sense of what I'm saying, right? They're the one who knows. They become the subject supposed to know.
Yes.
In the same way as when I was an infant, my mum and my dad were subjects supposed to know. They knew everything about the world, and I knew nothing. I was a helpless and nothing. And then I eventually was able to learn to speak, and then I knew something, but there are always other people who know more than me. The subject's supposed to know. And that's the fundamental framework, isn't it, of Lacanian psychoanalysis in the third step in transference. And I think this is what is so interesting about the work that you're doing, because the third step that you're taking, as I understand it, and that you were kind of like pointing us to when you were talking about generalized suspicion. And I suppose especially the kind of understandable suspicion that people who are minoritized, who are racialized, subjected to racism experience, is suspicion of what other people are doing to them. Why is it that they have this knowledge? What are they doing with this knowledge? What are they going to do with these diagnoses, with these interpretations? And so you kind of like are shifting us from thinking of a subject supposed to know in the clinic to, how can we put it? We still have to find a way of translating this. But a subject who is supposed to be suspect, right?
Yes,
a subject who we must be suspicious of, right? Instead of the subject supposed to know, this is a subject that we are suspicious of, and we're going to combat, and we're going to question, and we're going to think about how we can find gaps in their knowledge and relate to them in a way that eventually will find us a way out. So my question is, now I've finished with a question. In the Lacanian psychoanalytic schema of transference, the end of the analysis, if we can think of such a thing, if there is such a thing, the end of the analysis is when the analysand, or the patient, the analysand, comes to realize that actually this analyst, who is the subject supposed to know, knows nothing. Okay, now I'm free. Off we go, you know? The thing is finished. They don't know nothing. I've learned something about myself, and I've also learned to be able to trust myself more in the kind of knowledge that I have of who I am. So my question is, how does it end for someone who treats the analyst as a suspect subject, a subject who you're suspicious of? How does it end in a more progressive way in a decolonial psychoanalysis?
Deep question, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I will always ask you to be patient with my English and help me as you are doing. When Erica was constructing her ideas, I remembered many things to talk to you with you. First of all, it is in relation to psychiatric, as they were in the period of Fanon and in France. Do you remember that Perrot?
Perrot, yes.
Perrot is a psychiatrist that proposed that the anatomy, that you could find the inferiority in simple words, in anatomic constatation. There are differences between black and white people, and he wanted to prove that there were a kind of inferiority with the black people. In Brazil, we had our Perrot in the 30s decades, 1930s,
yeah,
and 1940s in Bahia. Yes, there are museum. Yes, in Bahia about him. And I think that today we are not very far from this kind of theory of inferiority. That these theories are mysterized. I can say that they are mixed. Yes, as theories. So I think that it is important, first of all, when we have a decolonial way to think and to operate with the clinical aspects. Even we are psychologists or psychiatrists, psychoanalysts or not, is to observe that the difference is never inferiority. Difference, the diversity, the difference is difference. Only this. I learned that with a father of Umbanda's religion. We have in Brazil some religions from the African diaspora. Umbanda and Candomblé are the most known. And in this experience of the psychoanalytic occupation, we did clinical supervision, thank you, not only with psychoanalysts, but with colleagues from other sciences, history, sociology, to hear what they think, and with persons with, as we said, ancestral knowledge. Do you know that? So we hear urban leaders, persons from the diasporical religions, and one of them told us about this case of this schizophrenic woman. You, white people, Western people, you said that if somebody hear voices, they are schizophrenic. I hear voices, and these voices help me to conduct my people, to help people. Am I schizophrenic also? And we are just like this. So, first of all, I think that the epistemology imposes a kind of a universalization of thinking, of carrying people. So So it is important to realize, and this is Lacanian at the racine
At the root.
at the root. Listen to the singularity, but not only the singularity, but the difference. We cannot know. It is impossible to know everything about everybody in every culture. It's simple, just like that. So they will conduct us, and we can touch the point where they are alienated. They, as other, as everybody, and we can touch these points. But we must respect the difference as a diversity and not inferiority, because we in Brazil, the Jesuits, how can I say, the Jesuits said that the original people, the indigenous people, did not they did not know how to think. There is no person that don't know how to think, that doesn't know how to think. Each person knows how to think. It's obvious. If I speak, I know something. I can think. So this kind of inferiorization is really inside us. It's not outside us. And for the intervention, as Fanon proposed when they said, how can I propose to musulmans to dance just like the French people and the Christian people to hear opera? No, they will not agree. They are not melancholical or depressive people. They refuse that. So it changes everything when you see with other lens, when you don't impose your lens to the other.
Because that's what happened to Fanon. He tried to introduce all these reforms in the mental hospital in Algeria. You probably know. He and the things that turning it into a kind of therapeutic community, so that there were newspaper groups, writing groups, sewing groups, opera groups, cafes, music, whatever. Wonderful for the European patients, the Muslim men and women. He just said, and this is where the ideas of the pedagogy of failure come in, don't they? Failure is so important. He recognized it didn't work. He and his colleagues, and they thought, right, we have to think about this. Yes. We have to do some ethnographic work. We have to consult with people. That's what you're saying you were doing. And when he brought an imam in and set up a Moorish cafe for the men, not the women, etc. Then there was some engagement and I think still suspicion because he was a black man and etc.
Yes,
but yes. But the failure, the being able to fail, I suppose, and that's an interesting question for me. Are we allowed to fail? Because we fail all the time, and people think, right, that didn't work. We can't do this anymore. We can't allow this to go on anymore.
And you said, to conclude the second part of your question, this suspicion has both sides: the psychoanalyst or the psychologist, psychiatrist, and the patient. Because we can think that, of course, there is a legitimated position in being in suspicion, of course, because the world is violent. Today, there are many kinds of violences in our relationships day by day. I remembered a doctorate thesis, where I was the jury, and it started with a clinical scene, very interesting. A trans person arrived in the what is the name of our clinic? In a clinic, in a private clinic. And the doctorand that was the analyst psychoanalyst, he said, "You can sit here." And the trans said, "Why must I sit here? Why you?" Simply, why you said, you will say, "Where I am, I will be." So this kind, it's wonderful to show that, of course, it's a legitimate feeling or supposed feeling. But I think that, as we said, okay, you can sit where do you want to sit. We can say yes for this kind of suspicion, but if we only recognize that they are legitimate feelings, we can stop there. And sometimes this kind of denounce may show other things from the subjective, unconscious, and suffering position of this person. So I think, of course, we can say yes, it is legitimate.
Yeah.
But tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Why this kind of offer, this kind of invitation? Why do you feel that I was conducting you to a place? Tell me more about that. So I think
that's so important, because often in kind of, culturally respectful, sensitive, whatever sort of practice accounts that I read, they would just say, "Of course you feel like this," and that would be the end of the story, or that would sort of avoid the engagement with the singularity that you've spoken about. And sort of prevent further inquiry. And you used the word alienation just before. And were you using that as I think it's worth just clarifying that as the marker of someone's distress. The
alienation.
The alienation, yes. Okay. Because you said this is something that we can work with. And we are. And you said, as everyone. Well, yes, so we're all alienated, but some people are more alienated than others in particular ways. And for minoritized, marginalized, oppressed peoples, they make. I'm just thinking of this move to say, yes, of course, you're, it's kind of colonizing, because it implies that the therapist knows their experience, and B, it kind of doesn't allow them to have some complicated relationship with their own cultural heritage and systems of knowledge. Yeah.
I will profit this point. I think we have time before past 5 minutes. Yeah. To answer, because alienation is a word for Fanon and for Lacan in different ways. Alienation and Liberty is the name of the book in Brazil. Is the same name?
Yes, liberation, alienation, and
liberation. In Brazil is alienation.
No, alienation and freedom. The big book of Fanon's writings.
Yes, alienation of the same in Portuguese. The same in Portuguese. I didn't think before about your question. So thank you. I think I jump a part of my test. Thank you also for explaining the subject supposed to know in Lacan. I think that if we think about what is the end of an analysis in a Lacanian psychoanalysis way, I think we can think about alienation and about suspicion. I am thinking now, so I must be more theoretical after, but just like this, what I think. When we are in face to a psychoanalyst, as we supposed that this analyst knows much, we started to talk with him. This is a precondition to the transfer, but there is a mistake there, because it's our unconscious that could do, that have knowledge that we can't access. So I think that this kind of mistake, we think that the analyst knows, but the analyst will not fall in this mistake. He will put our unconscious to work. Tell me more. Why you were so sad about that? What? And so by saying in the free association, they will touch the threats in unconscious traces or significance or words, and they will touch the points where they didn't touch before. They couldn't touch before. So in one way, we can say that when we started to talk, we can realize that we are subordinated to some words, to some keywords. How can I say keywords in English? Some keywords that we believe that define what we are. These keywords are not. We constructed them by saying with the psychoanalysts our histories, and then when we arrive at these words, we can see that we invented these words. As we were growing up, there are constitutive experiences that mark, I can say that, our lives. We have remembers, we have scenes, infantile or adolescent scenes that touched us and fixed us in a kind of satisfactions, sufferings, and by saying that we can touch and we can separate. We can separate. How can I say? Separated ourselves from this kind of words. But I think that in Fanon's ways we can say a little more. These words are not familiar words, are not personal or singular words. We have key words that defines what we can't transform for the beginning. For example, in my country, black and white. Here, I don't know, for example, the hierarchies, but one universal: man and woman, trans and cis. Cis is the opposite. Homo and heterosexual persons. All of these key words, they are in a hierarchical power arrangements that we can change, but from the beginning they are there. They are there, and they define people. Even if I am not identified to these hierarchical positions as a woman, a man can treat me as I am inferior in relation to him. Even I am not. And if I am not alienate to this hierarchical. So I think that Lacan didn't touch this kind of Fanon's observations, and we can to think about the end of an analysis and to listen you. I think the suspicion, first of all, if there are suspicions, I think there are not a good way to be in a psychoanalytical relationship. So I think we must receive the suspicion, but we must have a kind of a confidence. to, because if the patient, we said analysis, does not trust minimum in his or her psychoanalyst, he will not or she will not say anything. You just like, I don't know, I will see what. In Brazil, we said that we have a list of trusty psychoanalysts and no trusty psychoanalysts.
Trusted.
It's true. The trans, for example, the black people, the trans people, they don't go. They don't go in qualquer, how can I say, in a psychoanalyst that are suspected. The most conservatory. So I think that you must have the trust to less, because at the end nobody knows about you more than yourself, more than you. So I thought about these two aspects.
This is why one of the reasons we have the Red Clinic.
Yes.
So people know that this person can be trusted around questions of race and sexuality. So
the psychoanalytic occupation is the same.
Trusted enough, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes.
Just trusted enough.
Yes. Or minimum.
So thank you so much. I have questions, but I will be silent, and now I want to open the floor. So please.
I'm going to put a big wide trust because I've got you slipped that in at the end, which raises another question. Just for, I guess, context, so my name is Dr. Harvey Kennedy Pitts. I am a scientist, but also an educator and lecturing as well. But my focus area is global public health, so working with vulnerable populations around HIV, TB, but also capacity building amongst other things.
Could you speak it slowly, please?
Yes. So just for positionality, for those who will know, that's the lens through which I'm watching this conversation and sort of hearing and understanding what you're saying. I'm here because Dr. Saraya actually invited me. We've been doing some co-delivery of some lectures around intersectionality at Salford Uni. And when we talk about power, position, privilege, always coming as a kind of a three in that lecture, it absolutely aligned with what you shared today. And I'm going to start from the very last question that sort of, or comment, I guess, that came in what you said about trust, which is the Red Clinic sounds amazing. I've never heard of the Red Clinic. I guess in my own research, one of the interesting things that I found was that it wasn't simply about people who looked like us, but it was around trust. And you heard many of my participants in my study really talking about the preference for someone who didn't just look like them, but someone who knew how to do their job appropriately. And so that could come with any type of cultural humility, or using questions rather than statements, like sit here, where would you like to sit? The simple swap from statements to questions was significant to those groups. And so I looked at the intersection of race and gender and sexuality, but also health. And so that's why that intersection is through which it's sort of where I'm, I guess, coming to your, listening to your presentation. I have so many, I didn't expect I was going to take notes, but somehow there's notes in my notebook. I guess the key point there is it all comes back to power, right? And so I think we talk about being able to fail, or listening, or learning from thinking groups and knowledge exchange, but it's actually all just kind of language that we throw around because we think it's the correct language, when really actually it's a conversation solely, in many ways, about power and privilege, right, and how we navigate those spaces. So Pierre Bourdieu talks about theory of capital. I've come across that in your own reading, and that intellectual capital, okay, that you refer to in terms of those 5 countries that hold all of that knowledge. I find that very interesting because that's the intellectual capital, which is a major playing point, I guess a major tool for navigating systems of power and oppression, and who decides what knowledge is, the epistemological sort of premise and all of that. I've listened to the conversation today, and I've made my own observations about the conversations in the room, which I'm sure others have as well, and I'm wondering how moving from listening, moving from understanding the best that we can, to being okay to step out of the way and to push other people forward and give them space. So I'm a living example at this very moment about taking up space. I'm conscious about the length of what I'm saying, but I'm also demonstrating the importance of allowing people who are seldom heard to take up more space in conversations just like this. And so for those students who might be in the room, or practitioners or professionals who might be in the room, this is the overarching narrative right now, which is about who takes up space in the conversations that we have, who gets to share what's being talked about, whose narratives are deemed the most important or less important. This is a really complex topic that is simply emerging, right? We're only just scraping the surface of it. But the central question there is, who gets to take up space? Whose voice gets to be heard? Because that's where we see power in practice. That's where we see privilege in practice. And so I guess it's about opening doors and windows for other groups to be able to simply be heard. That's how low down on the list we are in terms of referring to Sherry Arnstein's model on the ladder of citizen participation, which comes from her 1969 model. Looking at clinical examples, I'm going to stop talking soon, but it's all the things that I've been holding on to, just listening to the robust presentation that you shared in the article in her 1969 model around the ladder of citizen participation. You know, we're so accustomed to people coming into services, into practice, into clinic from the bottom of the ladder because they're going to be consulting with you and you're going to start them at the bottom. When really the goal, according to Sherry Arnstein's model of the ladder of citizen participation, was citizen power, right? How we move people to a point where they are the ones holding the power. They've come to you, but we move them up through that ladder to a point of citizen power, even though it might fluctuate. But also the clinical example, last example, and I'll stop. Looking in clinical spaces. There's an article that I believe is entitled by Wilson, 2012, which is around the centralization of Western medicine. Okay, and this is the worship of the MD. You know, the worship of the medic. That they must be the ultimate truth. And actually, truth we know is relative to the person's perspective. And so we still live in a society where even those who are thinkers, the PhDs in the room, are still their journey and their knowledge and their what they're trying to, their knowledge sharing is still seen as inferior to an older model, which is the medical model, and we're even being challenged around whether or not we're allowed to use doctoral titles in certain spaces. And that for me is living evidence, okay, practical evidence of the discussion that we're having today around power. So I just want to share that.
Maybe
we can get others, okay, comments or other questions if you have.
Yeah.
Please.
That's my comment. Yeah. And it was just, it makes me think about theory and practice. So, you know, just the conventional structure of a panel sitting at the front, 90 minutes of presentation, and then 30 minutes for discussion, and you know, where the, you know, who's got the credentials, where that lays. Yeah. It's a good point.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
It's just a comment, really. It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I have a PhD student who is just starting, but they're doing a professional doctorate, and it's my first time. It's my first PhD student from the start, so it's a new thing for me. And they are a therapist working in an immigration removal centre, and I'm co-supervising with a professor of public health, and I have some different views around sort of how, so they are because they're working in the immigration removal centre, they have signed the official Secrecy Act, and they're kind of saying, you know, we're going to, and basically that their questions are around what are the barriers to people engaging with the therapy and they have some really great ideas around, you know, like we need to look at, is it culturally appropriate and all of these things, but they kind of keep going down this avenue that we can't touch on the politics. And I'm kind of saying, but how? Like, it is not, how can we look at this without, it is political. It's all, and, you know, even when we think about the barriers to people engaging with this therapy is the fact that they're in the detention centre and, you know, this whole, and, you know, people are living in trauma while supposed to be then having treatment for trauma while still within. And I was just feeling, all of these questions around power, and also for myself, I was feeling like I don't agree with this kind of, we can do it without talking about the politics, but then I felt like, well, I'm new, so I have to kind of, and this, and it's, yeah. So I just, the sort of the things that you were saying about suspicion were really resonating me with, I think that was maybe the point that I was kind of trying to make, that I was having in the supervision before, that I wasn't able to articulate very well, is that surely one of the key barriers for these people is the fact that they are in the detention centre and then they are being offered this therapy by people who work in the detention centre, who probably have the best intentions, and how can we talk about that whilst not talking about the politics of that? And and then the other supervisor kind of was saying, well, we focus on the practice, and not all health has to be political. And I was like, I don't agree with, but yeah. So it was just a comment, really, it was making me think about that. And it's nice to be in a room. Sometimes, like when you have those conversations, and then you feel, maybe, and I think you said before about like Soraya was saying, you probably sharing like some of the burnout that comes with kind of trying to progress this thing forward, and and then when you have those conversations, and sometimes you leave questioning, and then you get in a space like this, and then you feel like, no, actually, like we do need to make it all about the politics and about also, like I was shocked that this person said that they disagreed with me, that not all health had to be political. Like, it's always, that's what I thought, but then I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. Like, so, yeah. But, so it was a comment, really. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I start? Yes.
Well, the more.
More? Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I'm not really from a psychological background, but I guess I can relate on my personal experience and what I'm thinking about by listening to this. And even in my experience, my parents are very obviously they're a lot more spiritual based. So when I spoke about when I was younger, thinking about doing the therapy, they already had that oh, they're gonna use it against you. Don't trust these kind of people. And even I tried to take that into my own account by making the therapist from an African descent, or have the experience with those people. And then also made me think about what you said about, even though they might look like us, they might not be able to do the same job, and they might not be able to relate to us because they're operating from I guess a more Eurocentric way of therapizing, or a way of helping someone. So I think I really do agree. I think there needs to be I guess that flip as well of power, having I guess less about the psychologist or I'm probably using the wrong terms, but the person that knows what's going on, and less about them being a person that shares their information, more about them being a mirror for the person speaking to know about themselves. Because as you said, the only person that can really know about themselves is yourself. You're the only person that knows. But I don't know, that's all over the place, but that's I guess my thoughts. And I think this is a really important conversation. It's someone that it's not even in the spirit. Or
Thank you. Shall we go to you?
Yeah, okay.
Can I
Please.
I feel like I want to share something of the transference that I've experienced in the room. Maybe it was kind of transferential as well, but I had this really surreal moment when you were speaking, you were speaking about they, I can't remember the research that you, what they call
Quilombolas.
And I thought, I had this moment of almost kind of imagining that I was they, and then you were there as the white woman who'd been to France, and wow, you're this dazzling person who's been there, you're eccentric. And I felt really suspicious. And then I looked, and you were, sat by two white appearing therapists, and I had such a strange experience of being in the room at that moment in time, and I thought, what's missing here? And I don't know if you've done this in your research, but I thought, have their voices been represented in the paper? Like the woman with the with the diagnosis of schizophrenia, I'd love to hear how she experienced you, you know. And that's the way of turning it around as well, you know, in terms of what was it about you that helped her, as opposed to us just imagining.
She,
yeah. Am I making sense? Yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to share that.
When it comes to voice, Andréa as well, I just build very, very briefly on that to say, I've always been told that I speak very quickly. And through my self-exploration process, I have discovered it's because I have a fear of being cut off. And I've had years of being cut off in silences.
Fantastic.
So it's a new skill, I guess, I have to go in and say, you're about to speak. Now you're going to speak slowly. The whole internal process, because of voices historically being silenced. Just want to, put that out there.
Fantastic to know that. Yes, it's important. Yes.
I do apologise for my speed, but that's my experience.
No.
I know very well.
You.
I agree. Also, I think, like being a woman and also like the northern accent, like in the UK is very like. Oh, like they're not gonna be very intelligent and then I think it's like this kind of like I have to keep like going like this so that I can get out what I'm gonna say so that people will think that it sounds like smart. It's just like, and then you talk like super fast. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think also what you were saying then about like this is how also, because for me like I'm not a practicing therapist or I said at the start, like my work is with asylum seekers, looking as a researcher, but I participatory research, and I think that this conversation is also very relevant to that sort of how do we do research with communities rather than on communities, and how do we represent voices, and how do we shift the power structure within research to elevate voices, not give voice. That kind of, everybody has a voice, and how do we use our position to elevate? And yeah.
So you probably won't know the numbers, but there's just over 22, and my professors in the room can tell me, do you know anything about the numbers? 22,000 professors in this country, and probably only about 80 of them are black females. Does that sound about right? Yeah. So we'll talk about numbers and voice. Just wanted to put some
The same in Brazil.
Okay.
And we are much more black people than white people.
I guess if the aim of this session was to bring back, if we look at those people that they are speaking and we put them as the what was that word of Lacan? I forgot. The subject supposed to know. So I think now these are the subjects that we need to be suspected about them.
Yes.
And I think it happened.
Yes.
I think it happened
First
beautifully.
of all, yes.
I think it happened beautifully because people are talking about this. And I guess maybe we don't need to get back to them again. Maybe the floor can talk about these questions and comments that's raised. Because I think that's the whole point. They know. And we know. And we came here because we wanted to hear them. But we understood that
they wanted to hear Soraya.
Yeah, I know. Even if Soraya was here, there was another problem. Yes, she's a black, amazing woman, but she's also a professor. She's privileged, So that is also very different.
Just get half South Asian, half Irish. She is, so she's not.
So okay.
Okay. I think that there is one difference very interesting that we use in Brazil. I don't know how to say in English, the local of enunciation and the local of
place or space.
Subject of enunciation and the subject of the statement.
No. I will try to find in the. It's not that there is a black woman, a philosopher, black woman, that proposed the conception of place of the word, something just like this. Place of the word, I can say that. I don't know how. I will try to find and tell you until the end of this section. That is different because in psychoanalysis we use enunciation, place of enunciation. I can say that in English.
Subjective enunciation.
Subjective enunciation. And this is to think about this kind of paradoxes and contradictions that all of you bring today. I think that this is an interesting difference, because she said that we can have, when I am here, I am a professor, a white Latin American woman, but I am speaking. So I am in a hierarchical plus more
Superior.
yes, more important, I don't know, something just like this. But when I was in Paris, I was a young student, a Latino American woman, and I lived an experience very interesting. My professor, he didn't see what I was proposing. In each time he asked me, who writes this? Oh, this idea is so good. Who is the author? And for me, it was very difficult because I was shamed. How can I say for my professor on white, French, European professor that I was thinking that? Me, a Latino. And so I realized that I was a Latin American person there. I was racialized there, as I never was racialized in Brazil. Because in Brazil, I have an entry because I am white. I have privilege of being white. And I only realized that there are 20 years ago, 15 years ago, all of this became a question for me and changed my life. Because it is not obviously the place of the parole, of the word, the place of the word. What is this? Is what in England now I have one position, in Brazil another position, in that time in French a third position. And I, Andréa, I am not identified or alienated in neither in one, neither in the other, neither in the third position, because I have an enunciation position. I was alienated with other things in my subjective, personal, unconscious, analytical point. So I think that enunciation and word, place of enunciation and place of word can help us to think about that unconscious point, because the word functions in this kind of hierarchicals that puts you in a place of word. As you said, you must say quickly to not be interrupted. We know what. So this is word, place of word, but you are not identified or alienated in this place that they put you. So the paradox is that it's so complex to the person that cannot assess the places, cannot be in therapy or suffer alone. Or the others, just like in Fanon's experiences, they were called depressive persons. No, they were saying, no, I don't agree. I will not be in this ridiculous Toscalis therapeutical way of treat me. So what I want to say is, place of word and place of enunciation can help us to think about all of this, but at the end, for me now, I really respect with all my body these differences. And what I do as professor, as psychoanalyst, as woman, white woman in face of black people, for example, or woman in face of men, etc., is to sustain and enunciate the conflicts and respect what I don't know and what each person can say and can contribute in the analysis, in the classrooms, in my political acts. For me, this is really the only point I cannot discuss. I cannot put in doubt the respect. So I think each one, everyone can take her opposition, but we cannot deny the existence of this kind of power hierarchical. And I don't know if I understood, only to finish, I think that she, at the end, she worked with us. So I think I was with 3 black psychoanalysts. I was the only white one. So we could work together, and now she is in psychoanalysis, personal psychoanalysis of her. She is doing her own psychoanalysis, and the group already finished, but she was with us. I don't know. I don't know if I understood your question, but if it is about her, Denise, she is treating herself. She started to talk with us, and now she has her personal psychoanalyst.
Okay.
But I don't know if I understood.
I think I spoke a little bit and there wasn't a clear question, but maybe the question was in the research that you've done. I'm curious about how much space was given to the voice of the analysand, or how much of it was based on your analysis or your interpretation, So,
no, they took the interpretations in the psychoanalytical conversations. They take the sense. We only put some questions sometimes, and they work together. We are kind of in group analysis, a kind of facilitator.
My understanding from hearing you talk previously is that the work that you were doing was more like a kind of community development intervention, a community consultation, bringing together therapists and psychoanalysts with community.
Yes, considering the unconscious in community, but they do the interpretations, they do the constructions.
Maybe this is an important reason why Lacanian psychoanalysis has been more open to the decolonial movement and is taking decolonization seriously in Brazil, because one of the fundamental shifts from the English-speaking world psychoanalysis to Lacanian psychoanalysis is that Lacanian psychoanalysts refrain from interpreting. They give a space for the analysand to do the interpreting. We say the analysand is called the analysand because they are analysing. And that's especially important around the question of transference. In the English-speaking world, following on from a caricature of Freud, English-speaking mainstream psychoanalysts will interpret the transference. Interpret. You're speaking like this because you're speaking like this because, in order to install the transference. Whereas Lacanians work the other way around. The transference emerges from the speech of the analysand, and the Lacanian psychoanalyst does not interpret, but listens. This is their task.
Yeah. That's interesting. And, I'm also thinking after you've written it, it would be, I don't know if they had a chance to read it to see what they thought of it, So there's just something about giving voice to the people.
And being accountable for what you say.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole other discussion, because I think previously Andréa came last year and did talk much more about the process of holding those meetings with the with the community. But and have you written about it?
Yes.
Yes. So yes,
I can send some articles, some ideas to share, and I want to receive, if you could, your ideas, your comments by our. And only I forgot to say only one thing. In Brazil, we have many free clinics in the streets, in the quilombos, in the squares, in the stations, and the people can do their trainings. We don't have the legal process as you with 3 years of. If you have your undergraduate, you can exercise psychology, psychoanalysis. So it is different, and the people is trying to experience other ways to hear the person, the people. It's very interesting. It is called clinics in margins. I have in Portuguese. I can send, because I think you can translate. We have 22 and now more 10 experiences registered in fanzines. I can send the link to you also, and you can translate by internet.
Just to let you know, it's for, so those who want to leave, they can leave and we can continue. Yeah.
Those people want to leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, apparently we cannot continue
Well,
because there is another seminar.
So we can,
But you can go for it.
We can talk.
Yeah, I think it's related to what he said. Being a brown Latina young student in the UK, I feel like it goes back to like voices and how you speak fast, because people often cut you off. I don't feel like I speak fast even when people always cut me off. But what I feel like I try to speak slow, because what I often experience too is that people misinterpret what I'm trying to say, or they don't seem to listen no matter the words that I use. So I try to speak slow to see if they can listen. So that was like a reflection that I had, because once you mentioned it, I was like, yes, I always get cut off, but I try not to speak slow, because what happened is that people put words that I didn't even say. Yeah.
It does go back to power. It does. There's lots of evidence, written evidence, social evidence, informal evidence in the academic literature, grey literature around language and acceptability politics and respectability politics. And you see people who, I lived in South Korea for 6 years. I can speak, read, write, understand the language, but no matter how, to what level I speak it, people say, "Oh, that's so cute that you can speak Korean. Why is it cute?" And so you see people who've gone to China, they've mastered the language, they've gone to other places, and you get the same response. It's a power reflex of saying, "How dare you master my language? How dare you step out of how I see you to be anything more than that?" That's a power conversation.
You love this book. I think it is published in English. The Place of Word. You will love to read. I will find all. I promise I will send to Jan to send to you, and you can send to me what you are reading. I really want to know. I am very interested in.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. It was lovely, especially from you. I really enjoyed from your honesty. Thank you so much.
Yeah.